What's up, everybody? It's the Digital World Podcast. Or we're going to talk about here is the 30-year Treasury yields and what we're seeing with it. Because just yesterday, when we were talking about it, I had reported to you that we're around the high fours, basically 5% for these 30-year Treasury yields. Now today we see a spike up of about 2.5%, and it doesn't seem like a lot, but for these treasury yields, that type of move is significant, and now it's hovering around that 5.1%. So what that's going to do to mortgage rates, it's going to increase the mortgage rates, and we're going to keep talking about this and covering it because I think you're seeing something. It's warning, right? Usually, when the bond market has these types of moves, it's screaming that there's warnings, right? That's its warning signs. And so, if you know anything about how yields work, right, is the higher the interest rate goes up, the lower the value of the bond, the face value of the bond. And so, if you read articles about different, like for example, Bank of America, right? They have treasury yields, and they're saying that if we reach 7 to 8% on these yields, those yields that they bought around 2021 are basically considered worthless, right? So the face value of the yield is diminishing while the rate goes up. And so one thing I want to point out actually is if we look at the S&P, even if you look at all the indices, right? You see this huge drop off that happened around 12, almost 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And apparently, what happened was here, and I can go back to the article here that I was reading. Apparently, what was happening was that there was a treasury auction. Ended the trading day about 12 basis points. Okay, let's see. It talks about. I'm trying to figure out where it is, but essentially, what I read, it may not be this article, but what I read in one of the articles was essentially it covering how there was no buyers for the 20 year yield, absolutely no buyers, and and so what you're seeing is that a lot of people are not willing to take on or buy those treasuries. So what you can see is the treasury, or the Federal Reserve, excuse me, go in there and do some of those purchases. Now, I don't know if that's what happened this time around, but that's what you can see, right? So this is something we need to keep an eye on, right? How does this 30-year yield increase? Is it going to keep going up? Is there going to be any type of intervention? But we know that it's screaming something's happening in the background. And my thing is you got to watch um, what the Fed does, right? They've clearly been communicating higher for longer. Now, until they come out and say something different, right? That's kind of what the expectation is. And I think a lot of people get carried away with the mainstream narratives. It's like, well, listen to what the Fed's been saying, and so we'll keep monitoring this. But I think you got to be on the lookout, right? A lot of people, like I said, and I keep reiterating, is mortgage rates, right? They're impacted by this 30-year yield. And a lot of people, due to seasonality, right? Usually this time of year, it's a time where you see the market pick up. Builders, right, for homes, they're usually the ones that are start to increase their construction. And I don't know, you can comment in the comments section, if in your area you're seeing, DR Horton, um, uh, these other construction companies for homes, if they're giving incentives, or Lenner, what kind of incentives are they giving? Because I know here in the Pacific Northwest, you'll have, for example, condos or houses, and they'll say, "Hey, we'll give you a lower interest rate, right? It's never like nothing's free, right? You pay it off one way or another, right? Um, but still, right? They're trying to incentivize people to get into these homes. Some of these, if they're publicly traded, right, they have to report numbers every quarter. And so if they have a house sitting on the lot that's not being sold, right, they gotta offer incentives for people to get in those homes. Otherwise, that doesn't look good on their balance sheet. But so that's why when you start seeing all these incentives to try to get people into a house, right? And no one's market's at a standstill, and every market is different. What Miami does is going to be different than up in Boston, Massachusetts versus Los Angeles, California. A lot of these big markets though are pretty hot, right? Like there's a lot of people moving around, buying homes, etc. Right? I know Florida's been having a huge market correction as far as home prices go, and so what you're seeing is a lot of this stuff take place. And I think what you're seeing is people are who haven't been able to get in a house and the market left them behind are getting desperate, and they're saying, "Oh man, mortgage rates are going up." Their real estate agent could probably uh, be advising them like, "Hey, you better get in there before you miss out." But they're stepping into a market where it's like, "Hey, you're kind of playing the game of hot potato here." Right? And I think education on this topic is really important. Education of knowing like, hey, where are we? What stage in the market are we in? And how could I make the best financial decision for myself and for my family? I think that's the important part here. And so when I see moves like this, right? I mean, let's even go on the 1 month, right? Like you're just seeing like it's just constantly going up, right? This was at 4.6, right? Let's go 6 months. Where were we at? 4.32, right? This is December. So at one point we're almost at 5 again, right? This was early January. We had a little, decline and right back up. So I think what, people get scared when they see mortgage rates going up, the seasonality of things, and like, oh, I got to get in this house. And, unfortunately, a lot of these people may be the ones that end up struggling, right? Like, you got to study history. What happened during the great financial crisis, right? What's happened in previous times? And so it gets to a point where, yeah, you may have had a 3% mortgage rate, but did you buy it when it was significantly overvalued, right? And now, yeah, you have the 3%, but now the equity in the house are maybe you're under, maybe you're barely just flat even. Just depends on when you bought. But I think it's very imperative to look at this 30-year yield, see where it goes, because that you've heard that the bonds are the backbone of an economy, of the markets. So a healthy bond market is good for all, right? Anyways, that's kind of the update. We'll keep an eye on it. Gold is around 3,300. Indices, right? We had that sharp drop around 1 p.m. Pacific, and so volatility is up. We'll keep an eye on it. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode. This is the Digital World Podcast. Have a good one.